You're listening to WCOM LP 103.5 FM Carborough and Chapel Hill. It's a Tuesday, it's 5 o'clock, and that only means one thing. It's time for another round of Snarky Faith with your host, Stuart Deloney. This is a space where we irreverently wrestle through life, culture, and spirituality, all with our heads in the clouds, our tongues in our cheeks, our hearts in our sleeves, and our feet on the ground. At Snarky Faith, the questions or even the answers are never the point. It's all about the conversation. So here's your host, Stuart Deloney.
Well, good afternoon, and welcome to another round of Snarky Faith Radio. And if you can't already, sorry, this is like the worst intro I've done. If you can't tell already, I'm laughing here a little bit, kind of like that inner giggle that happens and goes forth, because I'm just excited to break down what I'm about to break down here. I hope everyone's week has gone well. Hope you're all surviving Trump-pocalypse. And hey, let's not go ahead and wait for anything. Maybe we should. Actually, maybe we should. I'll hold like the giggle machine back for a moment, because I think that we need to first of all get to the WTF of the week. That's our what the happened in the news this week. And yes. I gotta give you two things that make me want to laugh. But that's not the real reason I want to laugh. But we'll get there soon enough. So the first two statements in our WTF of the week, I'm gonna build. This is gonna build a little bit. So we're going there. Was when Rudy Giuliani said that Trump could have shot Comey and still not been indicted for it. Oh, what a world we live in. Oh, what a place 2018 is when statements like this happen during interviews with people. And if that wasn't fun enough, because Giuliani's just been doing what Giuliani does, which is essentially just rambling, incoherent verbal diarrhea. Every once in a while, words connect and make sentences, that kind of a thing. But don't worry. The king of verbal diarrhea said, Giuliani, hold my beer. So Trump had to come to his own defense. Now, from those out in the conservative world, Trump is a man that needs no defense. He is a man of shining valor and a spotless record. He's the man chosen by God. So why would he need to say anything? I don't know. Maybe he's a prophet from God? Because he said the zinger. And this, again, is humorous. But it's still not going to be the funniest thing we talk about today. But it's still really good. Like when the time our sitting president said that he could pardon himself, he won't. Because he's done nothing wrong. No collusion. No collusion, but big witch hunt. But literally, when have we heard a president saying, well, I could pardon myself if I want to. I could, because I'm the king and I can do whatever I want to. Yeah, that again was another thing that we're just kind of like, what? Real? What? Why? Actually, that's most of what Trump says. I just want to just smack myself in the head and just go like, why? Like, why? So yes, those are our two big moments in WTF. Then I'm going to like spiral down to like the snarkiness of WTF. And I want to go ahead and give a shout out. I want to give a shout out to my conservative trolls that are out there. It's always fun. Let me go ahead and just stop that. You're always fun. You're always wonderful. I love the stuff that you come up with trying to trap me and paint me into a corner. It doesn't work. And just because I don't respond to you right away doesn't mean I haven't heard it. It mainly means I don't care and you're not worth my time. But going through that, which is just fun. It's fun. Like, it's my favorite thing, aside from the Trump stuff of this week, is the conservative trolls that like to comment on this show. And as they're commenting, I know very, very, very quickly that they have actually not listened to the show. They've just read the synopsis of it and begin to attack it. Which, again, from an intellectual standpoint, it's kind of like trying to argue that a book sucks, but you've never read the book. You've only just looked at the cover or read the summary. So those are the sharp tools that we're talking about here. And in this interchange I had with one brilliant mind. Please read that is drenched in sarcasm. So several of these trolls, I'd made some comments about Trump on Memorial Day that did not go over well with certain people. And they'd asked me, I'd mentioned something about like the fact that on Memorial Day we are remembering those that have served our country so nobly and fought to give us the freedoms we have. At the same time, we have a president that's really trying to take away those freedoms. And so I had many like, show me what freedoms have been taken away. Show me. So after, again, this is Memorial Day, so I tweet this out. I'm not really looking at social media for at least a day over that because I've got things I'm doing. I've got like family time. It's Memorial Day. And so I kind of circle back around like on a Tuesday, and it's like it's rage spiraled with many people like, tell me answers, tell me, we must know, because apparently I'm the voice of liberalism to these folks, and I'm the only one that can speak to them. And so I answer them, and then I gave them just an honest and really honestly non-snarky answer. I was trying to be sincere about the things I thought that the president was doing that I felt like were dangerous. And this one guy at the end of this conversation goes, I need facts. Give me facts. Like he was just imploding with this one statement here. And I so badly wanted this to be, hey, dude, like, honestly, read a newspaper. You heard of Google? Google it. Just enlighten me. Just you go ahead and look for a second. You go ahead and look for a second and not let Facebook inform you what's going on with the news. Or an idiot with a microphone that has a show called Snarky Faith. Don't let us inform you with what's going on with the news. Seriously, I don't want to have the weight of your soul on my hands. I don't want to be your sole outlet for news, but I just love that. I need facts. Give me facts. Yeah, that's always fun. That's always fun. And I wasn't, FYI, I was not giving an opinion piece. I was actually listing things that Trump had actually done to begin to repress our freedoms. But I just love that. I need them now. Give them to me. I cannot wait another second. Oh, trolls. I love you. You're so much fun. But moving from those trolls to real trolls, let's go ahead and talk about the Christian crazy of the week, because don't worry, a week has passed since our last show. But guess what? There's plenty of Christian crazy for you. There's plenty of Christian crazy for you and you and you and you. I feel like I'm Oprah giving away free cars. Yes, there's enough Christian crazy for all of us. So let's just enjoy. Let's enjoy like the choice cuts of meat for this week. That's what I'm going to give you. I mean, there's plenty of crazy. I could spend a whole show on that. And what fun would that be? Actually, it actually sounds like a lot of fun. I'm going to write that down right now. We need to have an entire show of Christian crazy. Okay, that's kind of actually what the show is anyways. But I'm going to give you guys your sound bites, because this stuff is delicious. This stuff is making me want to giggle from the inside. This stuff is, well, I will let you judge for yourself. So here we go. So if you're a listener of the show, you should expect this right now. I give you Jim Bakker. I'll add snarky commentary to go through this, because I love all of you way too much to give you pure, unfiltered Jim Bakker, because your brain will explode if I just were to do that. So let's go ahead and break down some of the greatest, latest from Jimbo.
Trump is so prophetic, not pathetic. He is prophetic that it is overwhelming. It is.
So first of all, hold on. I'm really going to hold this together during this segment. I will try. I'll try. What? If you're trying to prove the case here, that, and just go with me. If one was trying to prove the case, not that one should, but if one would prove the case that Donald Trump is prophetic, you also shouldn't have the words pathetic like on the tip of your tongue in the midst of your defense of this. I like how President Trump is prophetic. Not pathetic, but prophetic. Because those two words we assume are the same all the time. I mean, seriously, if I was a Jim Baker orgy show 2000 from Branson, Missouri listener, if I was that person listening, I'm pretty sure pathetic wasn't going to be popping into my head. But now that you put it there, it's there, Jim. So thank you. Thank you for that gift. I mean, I was just assuming that the end times were happening right now, and that I needed to buy provisional buckets so I could survive the end times, because somehow in the midst of the end times, I've not been raptured, but I still need food buckets. I'm honestly at this moment, if I'm in your brain space, I'm really confused. Like, is the end here? And do I need to buy food buckets or do I not? But now I really am back to thinking about President Trump being pathetic, not prophetic. But Jim, I'm sorry. You're just messing with my very limited mind here if I'm one of your listeners. But please go on. Please go on. Tell us how he is prophetic and not pathetic, even though probably pathetic.
It is overwhelming. A prophet a day, I think. A prophecy a day will keep the devil away or something. Because
Wait, Jim. So a prophet a day keeps the devil away? Or a prophecy a day keeps the devil away? How does that work? Where is that in the Bible? I'm really scratching my head. I mean, it's kind of sing-songy, rhymey, so maybe it's in the Psalms, but I'm not sure. You're so much more of a biblical scholar and a felon than I am, so I don't know. Maybe I don't know. Maybe it's there. Maybe. Guess what? Maybe. Wait, I went to seminary. Did you go to seminary? No, you didn't? Oh, wait a second. But it must be there. It must be there. So please continue on, you undergraduate college dropout who must know that it's there.
this man, people don't know how prophetic he is. God spoke to me literally, and if God ever spoke to us, he said to Lori and I, you are to endorse Donald Trump for president.
Right.
And I said, well, they'll try to put me away. I know what the government has power, believe me. But yet I knew we were not going to be preaching over television much longer if the left wing had their way.
Sorry, I'm still caught up in the pathetic versus prophetic thing, and I just keep hearing that every time he talks about Trump, that Trump is pathetic, and that the Bible says he's pathetic and God says he's pathetic. But I know I'm misrepresenting Jim here, but Jim, you did this to yourself. You put the idea of Trump being pathetic, not prophetic, in my head, and I'm sorry I can't get it out of here. But please continue to tell us about how you're the kingmaker, how you're the elector of presidents, how you're the epicenter of getting someone into the Oval Office. Because, I mean, honestly, I have not respected you and your vast intellect and power and or food buckets all this time. So I'm really sorry about this. Did not know that your job, besides being a prophet for the Lord, you're also a kingmaker for the United States.
I had people, I could name them, from really high places. And they said, Jim, we know that you helped elect Ronald Reagan.
Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, but just me being an ass right now, when people like to name drop people that they can't name, when they try to talk about people in high places, telling them all of this wonderful stuff, it tends to make me wonder, do these people exist? I know that's not the point. Sorry, Jim. Didn't mean to cut you off again. Continue.
We got the tape that I made with Ronald Reagan way back, how many years ago?
1979.
And at the end, the cameras were still rolling, and he thought the end, and I thought that the taping was over. And there on that taping, I said to Ronald Reagan, I'm going to do my best to bring for you 50 million votes. The church elected Ronald Reagan. It's a fact. Yeah. The church people. And one of the reasons I have been told by so many people in high places.
So these people in high places, can you give me their names? I'd actually like to kind of fact check what you're saying right now, as opposed to them just being anonymous people in high places. I mean, when you speak of high places, are you just talking about like just what, like geographically speaking, like they live at a higher altitude, or what does this actually mean, Jim? I mean, I know your listeners aren't going to ask this question, but me wanting to be a believer, wanting to understand and be part of like, the gym train that's leaving the tracks and leaving town right now. Please go ahead and tell me, who are these people? Oh, wait, you're not going to tell me, are you? Okay, I'm sorry. Just continue on with your insane conspiracy theory prattle.
One of the main reasons they put me in prison was they thought I was going to get with Pat Robertson and endorse Pat Robertson for president.
Right. That's exactly right.
They said, Jim Baker elects presidents, we must destroy him.
Jim, I'm actually just speaking to you right now. Do you know why you were convicted and put in prison? Do you know why? I mean, I'm about to tell you why, but I'm really just kind of rhetorically asking you why. Do you know, was it because you were a kingmaker? Was it because you were too powerful and the deep state, quote unquote, could not handle you? You were just flying too high to the sun and they had to just clip your wings. That's honestly what it was. Wait, hold a second. No, let me look here right now. Why was Jim Baker thrown into prison? Was it because he was too influential? Was it because of... And I will go here straight, not to my own sources, but to the New York Times, that said this back in the day. The evangelist Jim Baker's long, slow fall from grace clattered to a crushing finale today when federal district judge Robert Potter sentenced him to 45 years in prison and fined him $500,000. Mr. Jim Baker will be eligible for parole in 10 years. Was taken to federal prison in Alabama in handcuffs, shackles after hearing a stinging rebuke from the judge. Stinging rebuke from the judge. So here is why Jim Baker was convicted, as told by the failing New York Times. During the trial, prosecutors outlined how Mr. Baker sold a quote-unquote lifetime partnership vacation plans, which viewers were offered a once-a-year vacation at Heritage USA for the rest of their lives for $1,000 donations. Mr. Baker sold more than 66,000 such partnerships in his Heritage Grand Hotel, although he promised his followers only 25,000 would be sold, and 74,000 partnerships in their never-finished Towers Hotel, even though he said only 30,000 would be sold. The followers contributed $156 million between 1984 and 1987 for partnerships with the resort now in bankruptcy. None of those who paid $1,000 each can use them. That's just the tip of the iceberg. And we're not even going to get into talking about Jessica Hahn and how you just only inserted the tip of the iceberg there as well. But I just wanted to just help those of your followers that were just wanting to clarify when you speak about how the government was doing you wrong and taking you down, that kind of a thing. Because I also don't want to spend time on the fact that, much of the money paid to Heritage USA's operating expenses, and Jim Baker had kept $3.4 million of that, or the $279,000 payoff to silence Jessica Hahn, who alleged that you and Pastor John Wesley Fletcher had drugged and raped her. Let's not mention those things because they don't fit in your prophetic end times conspiracy theory stuff to clear your name, even though they were factual and happened, and they don't look very good for you right now. So it's easy for you to continue to say that people in high places have said you were this man and all this has happened and everything else has happened. But, you know, Jim, I know you've got your side to the story.
I don't ever plan to write again about going to prison and what happened. But I'm really lately, I've been so tempted to tell the whole thing.
So I know you want to tell the whole thing. It's kind of your whole Me Too movement moment. You're just seeing folks like Kevin Spacey and Harvey Weinstein have their moment. And you're like, why not me? I was relevantly prosecuted against and jailed years ago. And why are these guys getting all the accolades? Oh, Jim, I feel for you. I do. I feel for you. But, you know, buddy, that's just the times we're in. We can't all be Roseannes, even though we want to be. And I'm sorry, if you just started listening to this right now, you're listening to a show called Snarky Faith, so read intense sarcasm and everything that's spoken right now.
Because what I've seen, what Trump is going through, is exactly what happened to me.
And I feel for you, Jim. I really feel for you. I mean, you tried to build towers, buildings after your own name. You tried to rip off thousands upon thousands of people to cover up your own mess. I mean, you just wanted to sleep with a future porn star. I mean, I get it. I see the way God works. I see the way God moves, because apparently, in your terms, prophetic means you've slept with either current or former porn stars, and you've had many failing businesses. I get it. So is that what God's mold is? Is that what God looks for in a prophet? I mean, maybe so.
And how they run it, how they do it.
Yeah.
And when the parole board looked me in the eye and said, Jim, we believe that you're not guilty.
And I love what he's doing right here, right now. He's writing a complete fiction as to how the world works. And I know Christians, especially conservative Christians, like to hold to these ideas that there's the way they believe the world is and the way the world works. And then there's this other thing, and it's troubling. It's called reality. And that reality can be very, very difficult, especially for the life of a Christian, especially a reality in which you've done sins and had to pay for them. But the hope is with Trump is that he's had lots of sins. He's continued lots of things that are corrupt and may seem like collusion, and there may be things like witch hunts that have happened because of this. I mean, ideologically speaking, and they're all very troubling to a Christian who wants to ignore this thing that we call reality. And sometimes I know reality is another word for the demonic way to look at the world. And I get it, Jim. This is tough. This is hard. It's real hard, but I know you can keep going.
It shook all the way to Washington. They said, you're free. We declare you're not guilty.
Quick note here, no one said that Jim was not guilty. I mean, I'm just going to add that in there. Maybe like in the spirit realm, someone said he was not guilty or God told him he was not guilty. But again, if we're going back to this thing that we call reality, nobody told Jim he was not guilty. That never happened.
Washington could not tolerate the fact that the board had said I wasn't guilty.
I'm not really sure where Washington is, but they don't sound very credible in this scenario.
They did everything they could to make me stay 2 more years in prison after that. I could have gone home 2 years before. It was retro. It was that. But
I appreciate you saying this right now, Jim, because you are such a martyr for the faith. Like, you could have gone home 2 years earlier, but you just didn't because you just love Jesus that much. And all I can say is it makes me want to buy your food buckets like right now. Like right now. Like, if you're listening to the show right now and feel the same way, you should just stop listening, turn off the radio station, just go ahead and close your podcast app, and honestly go to the Jim Baker Show and buy a crap ton of end times buckets just because of what Jim has been through. This is just, it's horrific. It's so sad.
when the government wants to get somebody, they get them. And this is what's frustrating about the president. You can't just do that to a president.
Right.
But we're letting it happen.
But
And I don't get it. I don't.
Something is happening, though, and I was going to come here, and I was very distressed, and the Lord.
I know something's going
but
on.
the
I can
Lord
watch
gave
it.
me
I can see the
here's
signs,
what the Lord.
but-
I'm going to show you the encouragement. Here's the encouragement.
Oh, thank you, Jesus. We finally have some encouragement here. And this is by Lance Wallanu. He's going to give us some encouragement in these times. It'll sustain us like food buckets will. Oh, Lance, sustain us.
That's what I believe the Lord showed me. That there's supposed to be a blue wave, this rage machine, this anger, this collective voter backlash. But you see like what happened last night with the Attorney General in New York? Now get this. New York is where they're taking the case to take Donald Trump down through getting his Michael Cohen, his personal attorney's files. New York's where they want to judge him. So here's what God does. Hollywood wants to judge Trump, Weinstein's scandal, and the entire Hollywood industry gets exposed.
It's crazy.
New York Times journalists want to go after him, boom, from Charlie Rose all the way to, what's his name, with the morning show.
Matt Lauer.
People miss this.
Yep.
It's the wrecking ball of heaven.
Oh my God, this is so true. The wrecking ball of heaven. God is a Me Too God that apparently forgot about the things Jim has done in the past. And that Jim, apparently, in certain circles, was considered the Cosby of the evangelical world of prosperity preaching. And it's great that God is moving now. God is moving through all of this nastiness somehow for Trump, right?
If you touch God's anointed, what you've done is you basically said,
Wow.
you get this?
Wow.
If you touch him, then you have opened yourself up to equal treatment. So you only go into war when you're in a righteous position and God's in the battle. But if you ever touch somebody that God has anointed, what you've done is here's what the Apostle Paul called in the old King James. The Lord says to him, isn't it hard to kick against the pricks?
This is a good word here. This is a good word. That you can touch anyone that's not God's anointed. But if you touch God's anointed in their anointed places, this is not good. So it's really hard for the touchers out there in the world to know, am I touching God's anointed? Am I not touching God's anointed? What's okay touching and what's bad touching? I don't know. It's really hard. And for all those touchers out there, they're just going to say to themselves, I probably shouldn't touch anymore because I don't know. Am I touching God's anointed? I'm not sure. I should just stop my touching altogether. Praise be to God.
In other words, you're only furiously kicking your foot at a blade.
I'm sorry. I just really want to understand this statement, and the only thing I can chalk this up to is it's prophecy, and we can't always understand prophecy because you're not supposed to kick your foot at a blade. And I wouldn't kick my foot at a blade. The only time I can think of a foot being kicked at a blade was in the second James Bond movie, From Russia with Love. And that involved this small little angry German-looking woman that liked to kick people with a blade that was in her foot. Was she Russian? Was she Russian or was she German? I don't know. This sounds like collusion. Oh my God, James Bond is a dirty bastard too.
So take a look at who's getting hurt in this conversation. And what you're seeing is Trump surviving. But I wrote in here that in the crucible of service he would find God. And that was one of the points that I made, that in the crucible of the ordeal he will go through, he'll be forced to find God. Because that's what happened with Lincoln also.
Oh, when we use words like crucible, it sounds very Christian. And I like all the symbolism that happens around all of that. And especially when you mention people like Lincoln learning something in his crucible. Was his crucible when he got shot? So will Trump learn something when he... I would never say that. I would never say that. It was Lance. Blame Lance. Blame Lance for everything that's been said. So somehow Trump is going to learn something through a Lincoln-like situation. Let's not get happy about this. This is what the Lord ordained. But you know, when we listen to prophets, especially prophets on the Jim Bakker show, I mean, let's just continue to listen. Like, not listen with our brains, but like listen with our spirits. Because Lance has so much more to say.
I'm suspicious when the establishment right and the entire left all hate one nation. You know what? I'm beginning to wonder what's right with Russia, that they're so vilified by the left.
I mean, that's a solid point. Like, when most people think something is bad, we should... I mean, I'm pretty sure it's biblically sound that we should just go ahead and assume it's good, because God hates culture and God hates thinking and God hates most people that think in a predominant manner. So let's go ahead and just hate the thing that everyone else with facts and figures and understanding and education and readability. You know, those people, all those people, they tend to kind of not like Russia and say Putin's not a good dude. We should distrust them because that's the way this works.
Putin is why is it we cozy up and carries over there bicycling with Iran right now? Hey, Putin is trying to be a friend to the West. What's their obsession? You see, what we did was under Hillary Clinton. You want to know why Putin would ever do something, that even could show up with anti-Hillary influence?
I mean, for all those in the Snark Nation, we all know anytime you mention the word Hillary, doesn't have to even be Clinton. Anytime anyone's named Hillary, they are automatically evil and horrible and from the pit of hell. So I'm helping you out as you listen here. So just realize that's a thing. So that'll help you listen to the rest of this prophecy.
Under Hillary's State Department, with the Ukraine and in Russia, the left progressives are like they're intent on ideology. They're like evangelists. They have to get their ideas out there. Their organizations were exporting these agendas through like Soros-funded entities, etc., through organizations into the territory of Russia, where Putin actually has gone on record because his public policy has been shaped actually by Christians involved in his own in the Orthodox community.
So again, I'll translate for you. Anytime you hear the word Hillary or Soros, that's bad. I don't care what the reference is. I don't even care what the facts are. When you hear those two words, that means bad, evil. That's like when the Samantha Bee used the C word. It's worse. It's worse than that. And we need to remember that Putin apparently now, because of Trump, is doing God things, because hell, even if Trump had prostitutes piss on him, that was like holy water, because anything Trump does now is somehow a sign from God. And we can somehow find this if we dig hard enough in scriptures about somehow like yellow fountains flowing upon us, the glory and grace of God. That's truth, right?
That he's for marriage between a man and a woman. Don't ever underestimate the hostility that America's system has towards anyone that won't bow the knee to the orthodoxy of the homosexual agenda.
So, if we're running the scorecard here, Putin won, America's morality 0.
So he says he believes in Christianity, and he supports the state church, and he will not, he locked up the Pussycat Riot group or whatever, the group, and he's shutting down the LGBT community.
Lance speaks the truth here because he's telling us Putin is a good guy. Putin is a guy that is running with Christian morals and ethics. So since he's on Jim's show, we should listen to that, right? Because, Putin's a good Christian ethical dude.
That is the unpardonable sin to the liberal. I'm not saying that Putin's a good guy.
Actually, Lance, wait a second. You kind of just did say Putin was a good guy. I'm a little confused on your logic and how you're extrapolating, exegeting the Putinness of the situation, because I honestly was totally on board with Putin until you just said you weren't. What?
He's like a mafia chief over there. I mean, Russia's the Wild West still. But I will say that he is not nearly, as a Christian, you probably, if you're faithful to Russia and you're not a danger to his government, you're probably not going to find him an adversary in your own nation. I fear more liberals in America than I fear Putin in Russia.
Okay, so this is the moment where I kind of take my snarky hat off here and say, what the hell are you talking about, Lance? What the hell is going on here? So you're essentially just saying is that Putin, well, if you look at him on paper, Putin is honestly more Christian than Jesus. And if Putin is Christian, well, Trump is Christian, and liberals are all going to hell. Well, if that's your message, I hear you loud and clear. And then, wait, took my snarky hat out here. So I'm apparently going to hell. You insane, opportunistic loon. And folks like him and Trump and Baker are trying to go ahead and make a really weird ethical lack of morality sandwich that continues to just have parts of what makes sense in the sandwich. It's kind of like, yeah, I like Cheetos in my sandwich. I like roast beef in my sandwich. Razor blades, I can tolerate them a little bit, because I'm following after Jesus. A little bit of hardship and every bite is all right, A little glass in my sandwich, it's fine too, That's what it means to be Christian. I don't even know why I'm talking like this at this moment here, but what is he saying? Like, what insanity is this that somehow the Russians are more tasty than the liberals in America? Because the word liberal means not Christian, right? And the word Trump means, of course, Christian. And since Trump is in bed with Putin, that means also, of course, Christian, because they've passed their Christian seed and smeared it around like HPV, or is it HIV? I don't know. I forget those. I get those words mixed up all the time. It's so hard to keep track. Seriously. But, for all of us that are out there that may say to ourselves, I may not listen to Jim or the Joel Osteens or the Franklin Grahams of this world, but I kind of still dig Jesus. Those people that begin to say that, I like Jesus, but I don't really like Putin. And where does that put me? And, all of us come to this place where we kind of say to ourselves, like, I just hope the next election that God doesn't try to do them under by hurricanes. I say that to myself. I've looked at Hawaii and said, why are Christians not saying this is the end of the world? Because there's lava spewing everywhere. Like, how has this not become a natural disaster that we can blame on sin or the homosexuals? Like, seriously, this is ripe for condemnation that's fake, that we like to make up. Gosh, this is a missed opportunity. It's so sad. But again, when we look to the elections here that are coming up in 2018, God wants us to go out and vote, like, right? God wouldn't send a natural disaster like a volcano or a hurricane, would he? To make sure people don't vote? Right? He wouldn't do that, would he? You wouldn't. So Mark Taylor, firefighter prophet with whom Liberty University is making a movie, please tell us the truth.
Look for some stuff right before the election, Sheila, and we need to be praying for this election for the safety of the people, safety and security of the election itself, so that it's not stolen, number one, but number two, look for false flags.
So, first of all, my larger question is, who is Sheila? Like, if we're speaking biblically, is he saying like Selah, like that they have in certain like King James versions of the Bible when you speak of Psalms, Selah, like rest? Or is he talking about, no, he must be talking about Sheila Zelinsky, who has a crazy crackpot podcast. Unlike this crazy crackpot podcast. Oh, okay, sorry. I just had to catch up. Now I'm there. Now you can continue, Mark Taylor.
And one of the things that the Lord has been showing me is that this could be a very nasty hurricane season. We're already getting effects down here in Florida. Like I said, we just had one come through here. It was a subtropical system. It doesn't normally start this early. And that's what the Lord was showing me, is could possibly get, if they don't get control of the technology right now, which we both know there's technology out there. Irma and Harvey were both generated and steered by man.
I'm sorry, hold on a second. Wait. All this hurricane business is made by man? Does that mean that we have a conservative religious pundit saying that this is made by climate change? That's what's causing these horrible hurricane seasons? Oh, wait, no, he's going to say they were man-made and man-caused in some sort of a weird conspiracy theory. It probably won't happen, but it probably will. So let me go ahead and let you listen to him.
Both these hurricanes were. There could be a couple of nasty hurricanes right before the election to upset the election so people can't vote, they don't have power, so forth and so on. The Lord was telling me we need to come up with a technology prayer, so to speak, because Irma, the eye of Irma came right over my house. And if you notice, that was the first time I've seen a hurricane like this. It didn't know where to come in and land at. And there was this war going on in the heavenlies because the Christians were stepping up, even other states were stepping up and commanding this thing to turn and this, that, and the other. Well, it did come in. It wasn't where they thought it was going to be. But the point being is that, we have the power to turn these things, but we need to go after the root, which is the technology behind the storm.
Now, fair warning here, I want to make sure that this show is not about misinformation, but the information we're getting here right now from Mark Taylor is that these hurricanes, these tropical storms, these natural disasters that are happening are in fact man-made by technology.
Why do you need me always and forever? We met in a chat room. Now our love can fully bloom. Sure, the World Wide Web is great, but you make me salivate. Yes, I love technology, but not as much as you see. But I still love technology. Always have.
This is all going to hinge. This hurricane season, or some things that may happen with the hurricanes right before election, is all going to hinge if they have control of the weather stuff.
So you heard it first here on Snarky Faith. Watch out for the people that have control of the weather stuff. The people that are in control of the weather stuff. They're going to be the ones that are influencing our elections. We can talk about blue waves happening all we want to wear blue waved in the mouth. But guess what? Only those that are in charge of weather technology are the ones that will influence the next election. So you heard it first. Oh, it's so fun to give crackpots their day in the sun. Isn't it great? Like, we allow them here on Snarky Faith. That's amazing. We let them spew their insane BS that they do on a regular basis. Like, here's what you have to think about. Here's what gets me about some of this. Like, we all have crazy thoughts in our heads from time to time. It's different when your crazy thoughts become radio show or podcast fodder. Now, much of you may be saying out there, but isn't that what you're doing, Stuart? Your crazy thoughts are... Yes, I understand. Yes, and I have a syndrome, a sickness. It's called snarky faithness that I have to continue to bring to you guys every week is what I have to do. It's my prophetic nature. is what brings me here. No, but in all seriousness, seriously, that people are spewing this stuff that should be like the random thoughts that are like in the recesses of your brain, like, hey, that would be weird if this happened, or that would be crazy if this happened. But no, like when it comes to the conservative Christian sphere, those crazy like outlying thoughts become mainline thoughts. And that's not right. And that's why we're here. But guess what? You've listened this far, this long, to get to our main idea. And yes, I know. I'm fully aware that we've run with the crazy for long enough today. So I need to go ahead and give you guys, like, you guys are like, oh my gosh, enough of the appetizers. I've had enough appetizers. Like 3 or 4 appetizers is plenty. Give me the meal. Give me the meal deal. I want to sink my teeth into it. Don't worry. I'll give you that. Because right now, here we go. And some of you may say, but Stuart, you've squandered our time with going through silliness and frivolity. I have. I will fully admit to that. And guess what I'll tell you? There was like another 50% of silliness and frivolity that actually left out of the show before I gave you guys the main meal. I know. This show, in many ways, is an act of self-restraint. But I do that only for you. Because I love you. I love my Snark Nation. I love my people out there. I love those that write in and email to us at questions@snarkyfaith.com. I actually gotten one recently that told me, it was beautiful. It made me like, I didn't cry. I'm not like a big crier, but I will tear up. And it was one that was telling me, thank you for giving me some sanity in the midst of this insanity. And I was like, oh, that's so nice. I'm so glad that you enjoy my insanity in the face of insanity. But I'm actually being serious. I genuinely thank you. I won't say who you are, but thank you. So the rest of our show is going to encapsulate another story from the failing New York Times. And Catherine Stewart had written an article called A Christian Nationalist Blitz. What could that be about? Could it even be Christian? I'm not sure, but let's go ahead and dive into it. Now, I will tell you that this whole nationalistic blitz is involved with nationalists. Isn't that weird? Christian nationalist? What does that even mean? How are you even a Christian and a nationalist? Because those two words, they kind of go together like oil and water. They don't even mix. But not in America. Oh, in America, they mix so well like salad dressing. And the article says this. I'm going to go ahead and quote from them, saying the idea behind quote-unquote Project Blitz is to overwhelm state legislatures with bills based on centrality manufactured legislation. Quote, it's kind of like a whack-a-mole for the other side. It'll drive them crazy that they'll have to divide their resources out in opposing this, says David Barton, Christian nationalist historian and one of the four members of the Project Blitz, quote, steering team, he said in a conference call with state legislators from around the country that was made public. What? How are your conference calls being made public? Seriously, any good nationalist knows not to make your conference calls public. But the article continues on saying, according to research provided by Americans United for Separation of Church and State, more than 70 bills before the state legislatures appear to be based on Project Blitz's template or similar objectives. Some of the bills are progressing rapidly. An Oklahoma measure, which has passed the legislature, is awaiting the governor's signature, allows adoption and foster care agencies to discriminate on the basis of their own religious beliefs. Others, such as a Minnesota bill that would allow public schools to post, quote, "In God we trust" signs on their walls, have provoked hostile debates in local and national media, which is, in many cases, the point of the exercise. So hold on. The point of all of this is exercise? Project Blitz, you're trying to get us off our asses to combat obesity and diabetes? Well, that sounds good to me, but I have a feeling that it's not about that. The article goes on to say Project Blitz seeks to do for Christian nationalism what ALEC does for big business. Reads the headlines of a recent piece Frederick Clarkson wrote for Religious Dispatchers that highlight the dangers. ALEC, of course, is a corporate lobbying group that crafts and promotes model legislature for advancing business interests. So, are we supposed to get fit with Jesus or are we not? I'm not sure. But let's let the article tell us how. In their guidebook for state legislators and other allies, the authors of Project Blitz program have grouped their model legislation into 3 categories according to anticipated difficulty of passage. The first category consists of these symbolic gestures like resolutions to emblazon the motto, quote, "In God we trust," on as many moving projects as possible. Parentheses, like, say, police cars. Critics of such symbolic gestures often argue that they act as gateways to more extensive forms of state involvement in religion. It turns out that the Christian right agrees with them. So wait, we're talking about like gateway drugs here? So "In God we trust" is kind of like the marijuana of gateway Christian drugs? Tell me it's not true. Well, the article continues saying, there continue to be things that people yell at, but they will help to move the ball down the court, says Mr. Barton. The second, we want to know what the second is. The second, more difficult category for Project Blitz consists of bills intended to promote the teaching and celebration of Christianity in public schools and elsewhere. These bills are means of spreading the message of Christian conservatives are the real Americans, and everyone else is here by invitation only. The sponsors of Project Blitz have pinned their deepest hopes on the third and most contentious category of model legislation. The dream here is something that participates in the conference call refers to and odd tones the Mississippi Missile. The missile in question is Mississippi HB 1523, a 2016 law that allows private businesses to govern employees to discriminate against LGBT people, for example, provided that they do so in accordance with, quote, sincerely held religious beliefs. The bill offers extraordinarily projections, not to all religious beliefs per se, but to a very narrow set of beliefs associated mostly with conservative religion. If you hold to a different set of religious beliefs, like, say, a commitment to gender and LGBT equality, there's no liberty bill for you. So how does that make people feel here in the religious sector? That we've got steps 1, 2, and 3 of the Project Blitz. Project Blitz seems like a Project BS to continue to push a very narrow view of how to view Christianity. Like, it feels like in the sense here that Jesus is being pulled into separate halves or parts, much like he probably was on the cross. I never thought of it in that way. In many ways, Jesus is being pulled in ways Jesus wasn't meant to be pulled, because we're not talking about being drawn quartered. We're talking about being crucified for sins. But right now, Project Blitz is telling us that we need to be drawn quartering our faith in order to be more faithful. And I'm not sure if that makes actual sense, because it actually sounds like they're calling us to be more faithless in this situation. And it has less to do with Jesus and more to do with being able to continue to push forward their political majority, their ideas that their ways of life can be pushed onto people that don't believe like them, which is kind of sick and kind of un-Jesus-y. And as I end this broadcast, I want to remind you that you can listen to this show and past shows on podcast at www.snarkyfaith.com. And as I send you out with grace and peace and snark, I will tell you that all of this is effed up and has nothing to do with Jesus. If you want to know what has to do with Jesus, go back and read the scriptures and the gospels. A Jesus that loves all, that calls us to love our neighbor, that calls us to love those that aren't like ourselves, and that calls the kingdom of God a place that seems to be like something that has to do with giving up power. And to call it anything else is to call it something that ends up being effed up and has nothing to do with Jesus. But that's all the time I've got this week, and I will be back to you guys next week with more Snarky Faith. I am out of here.
WCOM is listener-supported community radio, and Snarky Faith is only possible through our sponsors. Lumen, a spiritual community of seekers, sojourners, question askers, doubters, and skeptics, is a collective of fellow travelers that embrace the truth that all of life is sacred, hope is real, and tomorrow can be a better day than today. All are welcome. You can find more information at www.lumencommunities.com.